Keep it up.
Hello. So Chris has given me the well, you want me to have the brains today, don't you? Of introducing and hosting. So welcome to Diversity, the podcast on diversity, inclusion, mental health, well-being, all things that are very important. And I'm Lee. It's weird introducing myself because usually I just say hey. So I am the owner of Plenty Digital, an SEO agency, and also work within LGBT mental health, along with usual host, but today co-host, Chris Allen, Director of Your D&I. But then you can't just say hello.
Just give me a taste of your own medicine, because this is what you hear from you. Hi, everybody.
People know who you are. It's fine.
It's true. It's true.
And we are joined today by one of my oldest friends, Anna, who is the Director of Victress Digital. So thank you for agreeing to speak to us. And it's good to have you here. And I guess you kind of want to start off kind of just explaining who you are.
Sure, yeah. So hi everyone, I'm I've been running Victress Digital since 2018. So yeah, we've survived COVID, which was good. Other than that, when I'm not at work, I'm usually in the gym or walking the dog, and that's pretty much the excitement levels of my life, to be honest.
Hey, that's exciting. Don't knock that.
Yeah. Like dog walking.
Ralph.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we wanted to invite you on mainly because I think obviously we have known each other for a long time, but I think especially over the past couple of years of how you've been honest as a female business leader of therapy, of the importance of that, of fitness, of kind of like the journey you've come on over the past couple of years. And obviously it's something that I've said to you only if you're comfortable with speaking about that. But I think with your own sort of mental health journeys, how much you've supported me as well with my own mental health and wanting to get into it. So there's a lot of things that I feel was really good to have you on the podcast because of that reason. I don't know where you want to start, but yeah, where would you like to start?
We can start at therapy. I've just come off therapy, like literally about 5 minutes ago, so I can start there if you like.
Nice and fresh.
Yes. So I have been actively in therapy since April. And I recognise I'm in a privileged position to be able to afford private therapy, because I know not everyone can, but it's definitely been something that I've found really important to have a safe space for me to process things. I found like my head sort of felt like it was a cup spilling over with all the things I was thinking about. And I found that having therapy and being able to talk out things from my past has been really good for me to be able to focus in the rest of the week. So I've sort of had these moments during the week if things get to me where I think, well, it's okay because I can talk about that on Wednesday at 1. Yeah. So that's been really good. I am a massive advocate for therapy. I know it's not for everybody, and I know that some people might have not had the best experiences with therapists. I did have a different therapist years ago, where she used to relate to a lot of things that I was saying, which was great, but then I felt like I was empathizing with her too much. So she'd talk about like her own stories, and then I'd say, oh, that must be awful. And then 20 minutes into it, I'm like, I'm not sure who the therapist is at the time. So yeah, I think this time around this year, I definitely wanted to find the right fit for what I needed it to be. So we're working a lot on attachment theory, which I found really interesting. And then a lot of inner child work, which again has been really effective for me to start to process things and give myself a bit of validation for things that have happened in my past, which I think as adults we potentially normalize because it's just all we've ever experienced. So that's been good for me to have that validation, and for someone else to sort of say like what you experienced wasn't great and your feelings are valid. And yeah, it's been a really good thing for me to do. for sure.
Was there like a pivotal point where you kind of thought, okay, I need to try therapy, or did someone recommend it, or was it kind of just
Yeah,
things with, you know, no longer manageable?
I think that was it. I potentially should have started therapy a couple of months before. And I always found that I was very good at giving advice and not really taking my own. So I'd be talking to people and I'd say, like, you should talk to someone.
You are. I can vouch for that. You are very good at giving advice. Very good. You usually, which I guess is a blessing and a curse, because, you know, you are one of my go-to people, just like Chris is when I need advice. But which, I don't know, how do you feel about that? That people come into you for advice, because
Yeah.
they have to give and take as well, right?
I really do appreciate it. I think I get a lot of my self-worth comes from being a good friend, which again could be looked at as a negative thing, because I think I hold a lot of the people that I really love and care about, their opinions are very important to me. I don't necessarily worry too much about the wider opinion of me of people who don't know me, but people who I've invested time and love and effort into, their opinion matters to me. And I have friends like Yuli, who I've been friends with for 18 years. I've got friends that I've been friends with for 20 plus years, and that means a lot. So if they do lean on me, I see it as a compliment. I never feel like other people's problems take away from my own, or I feel like they're burdening me whatsoever. I can't really explain it other than I don't take it on emotionally. I just try and listen and give advice, but I'm not worrying about you at like 1 a.m. I'm probably thinking about something to do with an Excel spreadsheet or something completely pointless, as opposed to actually caring and worrying about people in that regard. Yeah. It doesn't. I don't take it as a negative. I take it as a privilege, really.
Do you get it from the other side as well, though? Because obviously you give so much of yourself to other people, and actually it's hard to, because I've been in this position myself, it's hard to then kind of ask people for that same support, because you feel like you're a bit of a burden, or kind of like, well, this person's got loads of stuff going on in their life, like they might not have time to listen to me, but you've always been that person for them. Do you find that quite difficult to do?
Yeah, I think so. And particularly, I would say, as like you two will know, I think when you're a business owner as well, you are the leader of the business, so to speak. And I don't have like a co-founder or any other people like that to talk about my like business problems with. And I think that extends into how I view like my life in general. Is I don't feel like people talking to me is a burden, but I worry that it might be the other way around. And I recognize that that's not the case. But yeah, I definitely would find it difficult, I think, to open up fully and talk to other people. But partly that's because I think I've built up a bit of a wall or a shell that feels like I need to be composed at all times.
I think obviously how you said that you don't have like a co-founder, or, you know, to always talk to, and obviously we do work together, and we often will bounce ideas and talk to each other about issues within sort of the marketing industry as well. And I've never seen you as kind of not wanting to talk about things. I kind of see it almost as like an independence that is actually quite admiring, like admirable. That's the word. In you, and I've always thought that, and I think over the past, I'd probably say over the past like nearly 5 years of us kind of like working together in that sense, I've seen it so much more and seen sort of your strength. And yeah, I know there's a lot of things that you've done like therapy, but I think like also a lot of life situations as well that have made you stronger. And
Yeah.
And I mean, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I do think that I've always thought that's quite an admirable thing.
Yeah, I always stand by the fact that I think we are on the paths we're supposed to be on. And I say that, I think, to you both in separate occasions when we're sort of worried that we might not be hitting the goals that we set for a year, or ourselves personally or in work. So I don't take away from any of my life experiences, because I think I wouldn't probably be an empathetic person or even a creative marketer, I think, if I've not experienced a lot of the life experiences that I have. So yeah, I don't ever look at them with a negative stance, I guess. I think your personal life and your work life can sometimes blend into one. And I found that sometimes I would find it difficult to bring up things if they were bothering me, which is why I found having a third party through therapy quite useful. Because I also know I'm paying that person to listen to me, so it's not quite the same as like talking to a friend. But I think if you're talking to a friend and you know that they're going through loads of things as well, there is that cautiousness of like, I've been known to send Yuli messages before being like, do you have the headspace to take on this now? Because I know that not everybody does, whereas I find like therapy is their job, so she can take it on.
It's something that you do that I find like so refreshing as well. When you say that, I find it really, because not many people do that, and even now I've started doing it more to other people as well, of kind of, do you actually have the headspace to talk about this? And I think going back to like therapy, because obviously Chris, you've spoken about like therapy in like past episodes as well. Like, I feel that I haven't done therapy apart from the traditional sort of CBT, and I found it quite I don't know how to say it in case there's people who find it really beneficial, but for me, it kind of felt a bit primary school. It kind of felt a bit more like doing homework, and obviously it's quite surface level, so I don't know if it really worked for me, but I haven't done any other form of therapy. But I feel that there's still a stigma sometimes attached to saying to someone, I go to therapy. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's huge. Like, before I went, I was in that camp, I guess, of like, well, why do I need to go to therapy? Like, I knew I had a lot of issues and a lot of stuff I needed to deal with, but why me? Like, why do I need to do that? And sometimes for me, like, I hit rock bottom, like in a big way. Like, you've seen it, like, in person. That was the pivotal moment for me when I was like, actually, I can't do this on my own, and I need to go and talk to someone. And like what Em said, like, sometimes you've got friends that you want to go and talk to, but then you start worrying about like, well, what have they got going on in their life? And sometimes for me, it's with experiences I've had with some people, it's you tell them about your mental health and they're like, well, actually, I've had this and I've had this and I've had this. And sometimes it's the last thing you want to hear is like, I've been to Tenerife, I've been to Tenerife. Like, I use that analogy quite a lot because I think it's quite funny, but also like very, very accurate. And when you go to therapy, like, I don't know if you've had the same experience, Em, but like, I just felt like I was forced into talking, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I went in the first session and I was like, I'm here to talk about grief. By the end of the session, she was like, Chris, we're not even ready to start talking about grief yet. Like, let's some other stuff. And then the next session, she was like, so how's your week been? And I was like, yeah, not too bad, thank you. And then she stayed deadly silent. And I was like, well, now what do I do? And then you have to fill the silence. So I just talked, and just all this stuff starts coming out. And that went on for about 3 or 4 weeks until a point I was like, is she going to say anything? Like, is she going to do anything?
I'm paying her. She's not doing anything. Where's your advice?
She's really trying to understand like what's going on to then start giving me guidance. But like she said, I'm not here to give you the tools to change you. She was like, that's your job. I'm here to give you guidance. Because with CBT and things like that, you're given the homework to do and all this kind of thing. She's like, that's not my job. It's like, I'm here to listen, and then eventually I will start kind of guiding you to where you need to be. Like, that's the whole purpose of going to therapy. So I'm still in it now, like, and it's something that I probably will never give up. I won't always go, but when I feel like I need to go, then that's it's an okay thing to go and do. Like, and it isn't for everybody, but I feel like most people should do it because it's so freeing, and it really helps you start to define like who you are as an individual as well.
Yeah, I know, I agree. The amount of times, I'll be honest, I would say the last 2 or 3 times I've gone to wait to open the Zoom call and gone, I don't know what I'm going to talk about today. Like, I felt the very same as you, that I kind of hit rock bottom. So at the start, it was a lot easier to be like, I feel awful. These are all the reasons why, and we'd unpacked all that. And obviously, it's been since April, so it's been quite a long time. And I started today's being like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And then I looked down, I'm like, oh my God, it's been 40 minutes. Like, I am gone. Like, this has come out. And obviously I needed it. So, and again, I keep having the call being like, I might say to her, can we go to like fortnightly or monthly? And then I get to the end of the call, I'm like, nope, I'll see you next week. So yeah, but I get it, it's not for everyone. And I must admit, there are a lot of therapists, and I think it takes a time, like any relationship, it takes time to find the right one for you. I originally thought I wanted to go through the CBT route, but I think having the pressure of having things to do after the session and like homework and worksheets and reading and stuff just added more things onto my plate, and I was looking for her to take things off my plate. So I realized that wasn't probably what I needed at the time. But I could equally understand if you've only ever had one experience with a therapist and you didn't really feel like you got anything out of it, then I can see how that would make your experience of therapy in general more negative experience.
And I think that's an important point as well, because a friend of mine, when I was talking to him a couple of years ago about starting, because I'd always thought about doing it, but just never took the leap. And he said, what's stopping you? I was like, I'm just nervous more than anything else. And he said, if you go to a therapist and you don't vibe, you don't have to stick with that therapist. You find a therapist that's right for you. And I was lucky that the first one I got, she's shit hot and she's really good at what she does. But not everybody has that experience. And sometimes you might need to find a therapist that's kind of specific to you. Like you might want to find a therapist who's gay, so who understands kind of what goes along with that, if that's your sexuality and kind of all these different things. So it's important to take your time, and actually you don't just have to jump into it with the first one that comes along. So
no, I agree.
I think so. Talking about therapy as in actually going to a therapist, what would you say, obviously for you, and I know so much about like your fitness and how important that is to you, but in terms of things that we all do for ourselves that we consider as therapy, what would you say helps you kind of the most?
I think for a while I was on this train of like the gym is therapy, and then I went to therapy and I was like, no, the therapy is therapy. Like, I don't think we should put a negative spin on things like exercise. And this is from someone who has had a very whirlwind relationship with body image and exercise in general. And I do think that over the past year, I would say that I definitely use exercise as a mental health booster as opposed to a punishment. And I think that's where the therapy line gets blurred when people say that they use exercise in that way. But I do think that exercise and mindfulness is, again, very fluffy, I would say, if you don't really know what that looks like for you. But for me, it was just being more conscious with the daily habits that I have and where I consume content and what type of content I consume and where I put my free time, and creating more solid boundaries between like work and life, I would say, has been more of the ways in which I have like therapied myself outside of a session.
Yeah. Sorry,
because it's quite a powerful thing. Like as a business owner and as a small business owner, like to have that definitive line between my day has ended and now this is my personal time, this is my personal life, because you live and breathe it all the time. So
you're incredibly organized. Well, I see you as organized anyway. You're a very organized person. And you're laughing, but I really do. I've seen the way that you work. I feel that you're very organized, but even to the point where we often go on our little like 7 a.m. walks, and people might find that a little bit crazy. Obviously, you wake up pretty early most days anyway. But there's something, you're probably one of the only people that I actually enjoy spending the morning with, because I'm not a morning person, as you know. You kind of make me feel a bit more calmer in the morning. It's quite a nice way to wake up. But yeah, I think having that as a business owner, you're quite regimented with your time, and you're rolling your eyes and you're laughing, but so yeah, do you feel like you've always kind of, because I'm trying to think about one, obviously I knew you when we were younger, but I don't know if there was any like kind of situation where I was exposed to it, I guess.
I think I've always been organized, but I think that's because I have a very busy brain. So I'm very conscious. I'm worried about missing things if I don't write things down. And I'm very much a write things down kind of person. I'm quite tactile. I need lists and I need written words. I know there's a million different apps that probably could tell me how to do these things, but I like to see it visually. In fact, the wall in my home office, I bought the whiteboard like paper, and I've created basically a giant whiteboard, and that's like how I process stuff. So I don't know if it's, I would describe it more as like organized chaos, because I wouldn't say I'm super organized. And I know that if my mum was to listen to this, she would really argue that I'm not an organized person. I once described my life as like Micah's cupboard, and it is a bit like that. Like from the outside, it looks really organized, but just don't open it because it'll just all fall out. And that's how I would say. But I'm a routine girl. I like my routines. I like to do things at certain times. I'm not sure whether that's a positive or a negative, because I would like to be a bit more free flowing in my life. But I know how unsettled I feel when I'm not organized. So I guess I don't know if it's a positive or not.
I think the fact that it took you such a long time to actually go on holiday as well, because of like the pressures of being like a business owner and working for yourself, and I know that when you did, it was kind of I'm proud of you for going on holiday, because you need that break. And but I think it's recognizing as well, I guess, when you need that, and because also it breaks up your routine, like you said, and if you're so used to your routine. But I definitely think that you over the past couple of years have been a bit more spontaneous, like with things like that, not to the point that, don't get me wrong, when you go on holiday there's still like everything is scheduled, lined up, there's plans for everything. But I mean in terms of you actually being like, oh, I might take a few days for myself, I might go away with Ralph.
I think I used to confuse being busy with being important, and I really know it's not. And I actually think that sometimes the way that I believe that the world or my business is going to fall if I'm not there for a few days is slightly arrogant of me, if I'm honest. I think that that is a control thing. It's a routine thing. It's probably slightly inflated sense of self, of believing that I need to be touching everything for it to work well. And actually I've tried to get better over the years, delegating and asking for help, and realizing that I can step away and the world still turns, and it doesn't necessarily need me to be like meddling with everything. So I think that I've tried to work on letting go and understanding that there is no prize for the amount of time worked. And I don't know if it's because I know we've all experienced loss, but I think when you do experience more loss over the years, you kind of go, well, what is the point of being this busy, really? Like, how do I have to show for it? And whilst I'm incredibly proud of stuff that I've achieved, I also recognize that if something happened to me tomorrow, a successful business owner is probably not going to be what you talk about, or I hope not. So I try and remind myself that there's more to life than this. Which potentially is why our profits are down this year, but we won't talk about that.
I mean, money comes and goes. Like that's the thing. Like you'll have ebbs, like in any small business, you have ebbs and flows, don't you? About like your good times of the year, or just good years and bad years in general. Like that's just going to happen. But you do feel guilty for it, because you're like, oh, could I have done more? Could I have worked harder? Could I have kind of got my name out there a little bit more? And you probably could have, but like at what sacrifice?
Yeah.
Like, you might not have gone on that holiday, or you might not have spent those couple of days with Ralph. Like there's all these things. And I feel like it's something that maybe I'm too relaxed as a business owner sometimes, because I actually look at you as like the pinnacle for me, like the way you run your business, the way that you treat people and things like that as well. Like, because you're just an awesome human being. And I'm like, well, maybe I actually need to work a little bit harder. Maybe I need to do a little bit more. But sometimes I'm like, actually, I think I've got quite a nice balance. Like if I want to go out for a coffee one afternoon, I can do that because the work's still going to be there. And it's getting into that mentality. And I even said it to my brother a couple of weeks ago because he was talking about how stressed he was. I was like, it'll all be there tomorrow. And I was like, actually, I need to take that advice myself sometimes because I don't have to work into the night if I take an afternoon off. Like,
No.
all about trying to strike that balance.
Yeah, 100%. I often like think nobody's managing my diary, and I always manage it like I think someone's going to come around the corner and be like, shouldn't you be working?
Yeah.
Nobody's there. Like, I could not work for days and like nobody would know.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have to be like logged on and ready at 8. And I do think that's potentially experiences from toxic workplaces previously to running mine. And I sort of wanted to be a business owner and a boss that was everything I needed when I was younger. But in the process, I've taken bad habits that I learned, or maybe like fears that I developed from previous bosses, which holds my own work to a standard that at times is unachievable. So every New Year's Eve, I write a vision board for the year coming up. So the more I say these things, the more I realize how nerdy I am. Has lots of different categories. So it's not just about work, it's about like wellness and health and that sort of stuff. And there's a work section, and every year, for some reason, I put a monthly financial target. And every year I miss it. And I remember when I wanted to hit a certain number and I figured that was going to be, I would feel good and I've completed it. I've completed the level and I never got the same satisfaction. It was the same when I used to chase the same clothing size I wanted to be when I was like trying to lose weight. It was when I get to a size 10, I'm going to feel the best I've ever felt and I've completed this. And I never got that high. So then I just set another goal.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I've done with work and life. And around sort of March time, I just crossed it out. Because like, you're not going to get it. And you're going to feel like you've not achieved things this year. And maybe you haven't hit the financial targets. But like Lee says, I've been able to take more breaks, or I've been able to have an afternoon off with family and not feel like I've got to take my laptop with me. So maybe I haven't hit that, but it's been for all a good cause instead of, oh, well, that's the marker of success. So yeah, it's been an interesting reflective year for that, because I won't be doing that this year for sure.
Would you say, I know that I definitely am, but would you say that like all three of us are kind of our own like biggest critics as well?
Oh,
Talking about kind of, because I did a similar thing when I started kind of on a training program and stuff, and seeing kind of, you know, seeing my body change, but then also doing that thing of, oh, it's not good enough, or you can't see my abs yet, or whatever it may be, and then changing the goal more. So kind of trying to work harder, and I do the same with, you know, with work, with personal life, and if you don't achieve that goal, like kind of like you said, changing the goal. But I think actually crossing it out and being like, I'm not gonna get there, but then each year as well, would you always, I'm guessing each year it increased.
Yeah,
right?
it did. Yeah.
Increased. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, even if you did achieve that, you're always striving for more, for the next best thing. And but the only, like you said earlier as well, like you're waiting for someone to come around the corner and like should be doing something.
Yeah.
It's just, I feel, I don't know if you're the same, Chris, but I get that of, if I do something that is actually really good and should be celebrated, I don't celebrate it myself. It's very rare that I do. I'm kind of like, oh, I could have done better. Like it's always that I wanted to achieve this. And
yeah, and you'll probably agree, it's like, it's not a frustration with Lee, but like he doesn't see how great he is sometimes.
Oh no, I know. Yeah.
And we all get like that. We're not ganging up on you. It was like, what do you mean? But yeah, like you achieved some amazing things. You've done some amazing things. And just over the last like 14 months that I've known you, like, and you really put yourself out of your comfort zone. Like you did a conference this year. You sat and you spoke about inclusion. You spoke about LGBT mental health, like things that you would never have done.
I felt like a fraud whilst I was there. So that's what I mean. It's that kind of, like, even this podcast, I often have like, am I the right person to be talking about this?
Yes, you are. Yes.
So
I mean, I've been doing this for 4.5 years and I still feel like a fraud every single day. I'm like, why does someone want to hire me to talk about D&I? Like, we all get that way. Like, it's a natural thing. And that's why I guess we have people like ourselves in our lives, where actually we're the ones that celebrate you for you, because somebody see it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, having those people to remind you, and we've spoken about it in the past few episodes of having like your tribe and knowing, and me and you, and we've spoken a lot, like countless hours of the people in our lives, and without you as well. Like, it's worth mentioning that I wouldn't know Chris either. So, and I think like I really trust your judgment with the people that you surround yourself with, and the same with Chris as well. I feel like if you're going to introduce me to someone, that person is probably going to be a quality human being.
Yeah.
I think as you get older, like I definitely made my circle a lot smaller as I got older. One of the other things that's on my vision board, instead of being like, do this specific thing, is spend more time with kind people. And I was like, I need to actually surround myself with people that I leave feeling energized and not like they've zapped everything from me. And I know that, like Lee, we've spoken before about there are some people who sort of do zap your energy. They're a little bit, again, like wanting one up you every issue that you'll have. Oh yes. And I know that sometimes it's a relatability and people seek comfort in that. You tell them a story, they want you to understand that they relate, and therefore they tell their story as well. But I think there's some people who will take from you, and I've kind of had to learn that lesson as I've got older. And I maybe was a little bit worried as I got older of, should I be cutting these people out? But it was never I don't really have fallouts with people. I just had this distance, and it was just a mutual agreement that we're in different stages of our life now, and we don't have that much in common anymore. I'm 33, I'm not married, and I don't have children. So my friends that are married with children, we have slightly different like views on the world, and I'm sure I'm probably viewed a little bit more like Bridget Jones to some of our old school friends. But I do think you do have to start surrounding yourself with people who, and it's not as though you're always looking for people who give you something. It's not necessarily that, but I do think if your values align and you are similar people, and I would never want to put someone in front of someone if I thought that they could be a negative person. I'm very much about energy, but I'm also not protective over people, because I remember you being like, you sure you're all right with this? Like,
yeah, every time I met up with Chris, I was kind of like, oh my god, like,
yeah, it's mine.
to meet up.
No, I definitely think, look, if there are people that I think have got similar energies and would work really well, or just in general, like, are good people, then yeah, I think I want to share them with good people.
Definitely. Yeah. I remember the first time we ever met. Do you remember the call we were on the first time we ever met him?
Yeah.
It was one of the weirdest like things to ever be involved with. There was a D&I platform called Dink, which was like an app, and then M was working with, don't have to name the organization, but I can't really remember who they were.
Yeah, it was a news channel.
Yeah. I don't think they exist anymore.
No, I don't know.
But Dink wanted to partner with them, and they wanted to partner with Dink, and like Dink was just, the idea behind it was really cool. So it was like diversity and inclusion on an app where people could learn stuff and find out information and all that kind of thing. And I found myself in a situation where I knew the guy who ran it just through networking, but he was the worst networker because he was just not very good at it. And he was very shy as well. So naturally he wasn't in his kind of comfort zone. So I found myself on this call, like selling the platform pretty much about what it did. And I was like, this isn't my job. This isn't my job. And then we just hit it off. And I was like, this person's really cool. Like, there's a really good vibe. And then we just kind of chatted over a few years, and we've kind of hung out a few times. And yeah, you were like, by the way, there's this guy that is a really good friend of mine who wants to explore the D&I space. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll have a conversation with him. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was Lee, but
now we're stuck with each other.
Stuck with each other. I know.
I think going back as well to what you said about people kind of viewing you as Bridget Jones, like friends viewing, and I think that it's it's a thing that keeps on coming up when we spoke in the previous episode, and also with the one with Taylor, about kind of identifying that certain friendships you're still friends, but like kind of having different opinions, different views, especially like when friends have kids. So if you meet up with them and kind of maybe them seeing you as, oh, you've got nothing going on in your life or whatever because you don't have kids, and you maybe kind of feeling a bit more like I can't have a proper conversation with you because it's easier to have a conversation with a friend when it's just you two, right? But I think, like, I mean, I don't see it in a negative way at all, but I think it gets kind of, as you get older, kind of identifying a little bit more that everyone's different. Like, you have different friendship groups.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that keeps on coming up, of kind of that if someone doesn't really serve a specific purpose anymore, it can be quite difficult to just say goodbye to that friendship. And we spoke as well, Chris, about like grief, and you can actually have grief from a friendship, like from a friendship ending.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that the friendships ending can hit you the way that a breakup does. I think it's really a time of like self-reflection and what was my part in this, and could I have done it differently, and what about all the memories that we had previously, and then you kind of rose tinted glasses it of, but we used to be really good friends and I don't know why we're not anymore. And I am lucky in the sense that the friends that I'm not as close to now, like I say, there's not been some big explosive fallout. It's just been, oh, we're just in different places now. But I quite like, I don't always want to be friends with everyone that's the same as me. Like my friends that, like one of Lee and I's best friends, Liz, has got a child, and I know for a fact that I'm going to be a major part of that child's life. And then I don't have to have the responsibility of keeping it alive, which is always good. So I do think that there's a lot of differences that make great friendships that I can bring to the table. But for me, again, it's the energy thing. And I think there are some friendships as you get older that you maybe feel apprehensive about before you meet, or you, like I say, you leave feeling like all the energy sort of zapped out of you, or you leave feeling way worse than you went in. And like I say, when we meet up and we go for walks and it is 7 a.m. and it's dark and it's winter and we've both got our hood up, we can then get back to the car and be like, oh, that was actually really good. Or most of the time we stand by the car and talking for an hour and on top of the walk that we've just done, because like we're the same type of person and we get good things from each other. And I think that's how it should be, because our friendships and our circles that we surround ourselves with are so much part of our life and how we view ourselves. And yeah, I think any friends or any working relationship that makes you doubt yourself is not worth holding on to. And it's sometimes, I think, particularly the friendships that you've been friends for a long time, it's really hard to let that go. But
yeah, I think having that understanding as well, that if, you know, like when people do get married or have kids or don't, like to just have that understanding as well, of that it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy spending time together. It's just having that understanding that just because someone has kids and sometimes they may be struggling with things, it doesn't mean that they can't come to you and talk about it just because you don't have kids. And so, and the friends that do have, my friends that do have kids, I love their kids. Like you said, you can give them back. Like you don't have that responsibility. So yeah, it's such a nice sort of, I don't know, to be viewed as kind of like an uncle or an auntie, and it's a nice place to be. What are your thoughts, Chris, on kind of friendships?
I was just thinking, like, when you're talking about like the Bridget Jones kind of theory, shall we call it, there's such a societal expectation, isn't there? Like even still in 2024, that if you're a woman of a certain age and you're single or whatever, that like, why don't you have children? Why aren't you married? Like, why aren't you dating someone? Or like, what's wrong with your life? It's kind of this kind of thing that we're ingrained with because we've been told throughout our lives that this is the norm and this is what needs to happen. And I guess when we were talking about business and the cut off with business too, I feel like as millennials, we're very programmed to be like, you have to work as hard as possible. You have to prove yourself in every aspect of your life. It's something that most millennials I speak to, we all go through it. And I guess that's the same with friendships as well. And like we've literally recorded an episode on kind of friendships and relationships and stuff. And we're so programmed that like if you have a friend from high school into your adulthood, well, that's your friend for the rest of your life and you have to be that person's friend. but actually you don't have to be that person's friend, because you grow, you evolve, and you develop and kind of become someone different, hopefully. And you potentially just lose that connection with that person. And it's okay to turn around and be like, you know what? I don't really want to hang around with you anymore, because I just don't feel like we're bringing value into each other's lives.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of it this year. Like Lee knows, he's kind of seen it. He's made the cut. But there's been.
I'm still a relatively new friend, I guess, in the grand scheme.
I mean, you're going nowhere. Like let's just be honest. Like that's not happening. But I had quite a large group of friends, and actually being able to kind of be in a place in your life where you're like, no, I'm done. Like we don't bring value to each other's lives. Like, see you later. And I think it's an important thing that not a lot of people do. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there that hang on to friendships because it makes them feel good, because they talk about the past and stuff. But actually, is that the right type of friendship? I don't know. Like,
no, I think I know I'm such a different person than I was when I was younger. And I think the friendships that, like, we joke about, but like that have made the cut as we've got older, or friendships that have spanned several decades, of people that have evolved in that time. And I do think that's key as well. There are times where you reminisce for sure, but like if Lee and I meet up, we're not necessarily talking about past us or like 15-year-old us, or like going out and that sort of stuff. We're talking about who we are right now in the present moment. And I think that's the key part for me, is the conversations have evolved because we've evolved as people. And that's why I think our friendships of that degree do stand the test of time, because you've seen that person for who they are and understood that they are different to the person you met, and now you are also different to that person. So I think as long as you are both evolving at the same way, it doesn't necessarily mean that your lives have to be identical, or your family home is the same, but as long as your values, the way you judge people, the way you feel about the world is similarly aligned, and you're not necessarily butting heads about that sort of stuff, then I think that friendships can span a long time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like, we have only known each other for a very short period of time, but like we've seen each other shift and change so much in kind of who we are, I think, over the last like year and a bit. I'm not the same person I was 14 months ago, like when we first met. But you've hung around and you've kind of been there, and like our friendships developed and evolved because of that. And like there's been shifts in you and kind of your confidence and things like that, and kind of who you are as a person. Like that's just a nice part of friendship, and that's the way it should be. And we celebrate each other, and we take the piss out of each other, and maybe even love each other, Lee. Who knows?
Let's not go that far.
I despise.
But obviously, because I have known you for such a long time, like even our friendship is like changed, and I think like we're a lot closer than we probably ever have been. And I think obviously working together, but I think when you're younger as well, like sometimes the people you surround yourself with and being influenced by other people and how you react towards other people as well, I think as you get older, that disappears a little bit, because you become more, well, it either does or it doesn't, but you become a bit more aware. And I think as we've got older, we realize we have so many similar values and things that kind of make us feel better, whether that's fitness, going for a walk at 7 in the morning, or being out in nature, and we speak about that all the time when we're together. And that's kind of, instead of just reminiscing about when we used to get drunk in Rock City, which, don't get me wrong, is still a good memory to have.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think it's an important part of friendship that has lasted a long time to evolve with that person.
Yeah, for sure. I think like Chris said about being millennial, I think it is definitely a generational thing, and there are lots of, I think we are the generation that is sort of in between the two. So that's something that, again, to bring it right full circle back to therapy, something that I'm talking about at the moment about generational trauma, and how obviously our parents and their parents experienced and handled things completely different. And then obviously the younger generations that are coming in with like the social media era and a lot of validation through that. And I do think we are the sort of middle gap who is a bit more aware of ourselves and aware of our surroundings and how we impact people. So yeah, I think that's got a lot to do with it, is sort of where we sit and the values that we uphold, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I guess as we wrap up this episode, we have been asking people what their hot drink, or you may not like hot drink. Well, obviously I know what you like, but but what your drink of choice would be, and we don't discriminate, so it doesn't have to be tea. But if it was a tea, what would you choose? And I know what the answer is already for your choice. So.
Yeah, I am a coffee drinker. Sorry, Chris.
That's okay.
Yeah, 2-1.
I am a coffee drinker. That is where my emo side comes out, because I like it black as anything. I'm partial to a cold brew, black, or a black Americano, and no sugar. Like
straight.
Yeah,
you're hardcore. Like you are hardcore.
There used to be a coffee called Rocket Fuel. I don't know if it still
Oh, I remember
exists.
it,
I
yeah.
remember Rocket Fuel.
That anything. If it's basically the texture of gravy, I want it. And then I am like partial to a good cup of coffee as well. So yeah, not instant. Please don't ever serve me instant coffee.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a coffee snob with that. Tea wise, I don't like milk.
Okay, fair.
So that takes out in like English breakfast. So I would go peppermint or lemon and ginger would be my tea.
Oh.
Yeah, I do like a lemon and ginger. Though it does kind of remind me of like being ill. Like I've got a bit of a sore throat and I've got a like lemon and ginger tea.
Yeah, that's
I'm a sucker for anything ginger.
yeah.
People?
Yeah.
Sure.
As a fellow emo, this is a question I'm just going to have to ask. Like, what would you say is your ultimate emo anthem?
Oh God.
Putting her on the spot.
Yeah, no, I would anything Panic at the Disco.
Oh, nice. Like we're talking first album?
First album, always first album.
Yeah.
Or Paramore's first album.
Yeah.
When it got to Riot and everyone enjoyed it, I was a bit sad. But like, yeah.
Emergency, what a tune. Like what an absolute tune.
Yeah, I'm a partial to screaming my heart in the car.
Same.
So yeah, anything old school like that. When it started to get a little bit mainstream, I got sad.
I know. Well, it's come back as well. It's come back full circle. Like emo is like
oh yeah,
prominent right now.
Like they have not gone anywhere.
I'm that guy that you'll find like walking to Morrison's at night with my headphones in, like screaming to myself. Like I'm that guy.
Yeah, I'm like that. I'm either in the like Sleep Token, Bad Omens level.
Yeah.
Or you can catch me skipping down the street to Meghan Trainor. Depends on the mood.
Yeah. Because I feel like she's like a pop emo because she sings about her emotions and stuff, doesn't she? So like, you know.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
It's quite sad that we're now at that age where being an emo is probably considered as quite cool. Like, you know, when we was younger, like the 80s was considered cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a playlist that came up on Spotify the other day and called it Dad Rock. And I was like, but yeah, I guess it is now. It was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
In 2003, it was at its height. And yeah, like, you know, rock, yeah.
Yeah, earlier on this year, I went to Slam Dunk Festival and then seeing a lot of the bands now playing and how old they are was an experience.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Next year I want to do When We Were Young Fest in Vegas. Like, that's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, like Head Automatica. That guy's old now. He needs to. He does look like he owns a yoga retreat, and he may well do. But he just.
I always got that vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, he just looked like he'd just been like doing some stretches and downward dogging, and then he was like, "Oh, let me do this gig real quick," and then pop off.
Beating Heart's Baby was such a tune.
Yeah, I only waited for that.
Yeah, anyone ever knows.
Yeah,
I think we've opened up like a whole other. Maybe we should speak about emo music.
We'll link some songs to the posts and things like that as well. So if people are interested, they can listen.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining us and for agreeing and for being honest and open and being an amazing human being in general.
Thanks.
We love him.
And if you have enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe, do your thing, whatever, listen to us wherever you get your podcast from. And we shall speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Oh, right.
Oh.
Oh.